Let's talk about this. Joining us right now is Republican Congressman Pete Sessions of Texas. Congressman, thank you for coming in this morning. On that topic that John and Kevin were just talking about, and hearing the president in this new interview say, I don't know, when he was asked if people on American soil should be afforded due process. If the president does not believe in due process, I mean, do you have an issue with that?
Kate, let's be really honest about this. The circumstance that we find ourselves in is the prior administration allowed people to come here. They changed the law. Previously, the law, not the Constitution, the law said that people had to let the United States know that they were seeking asylum to come into the United States, and that is the value by which the United States would then evaluate a person not only coming, but then having what I consider to be constitutional rights, or the right for some due process. Most of these millions of people came across without following that known way that business was done, and that's because President Biden waived that prescriptive part of the law. And granted, it was executive order. So now the President Trump, is stuck with people who he believes should not have been able to gain that authority or responsibility under due process because they did not follow the law or the executive order to get here. So that's the problem. And so the president is not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. And we're going to find out through the courts what they think. But if a person comes here without following the well-established law, giving us notice, letting us make that assertion, and then knowing the facts of the case, I think it is a sticky wicket.
Not being a lawyer, I don't actually think it needs to apply here in one regard, which is that Kristen Welker asked, do you believe you need to uphold the Constitution? Just that on its face, hearing the president say, I don't know, it's part of the oath that you took. And you've taken many times when you have, at every term that you have won, to be a member of Congress. So are you saying you agree with the president that you don't think people on American soil need to be afforded due process?
No, I do believe in the Constitution. I raised my hand just as the president did, but that's not the scenario that he's being asked. He's being asked about people who came here without following the law, who came to this country and hid from us, who committed criminal acts, and now do they get due process? And then we apply the Constitution, when in fact,
on that issue, to ascertain if they have committed crimes, you need due process to ascertain if they have committed crimes.
Well, and they, as in the case of the man who was from Venezuela, he was under another process, seen at a crime and tagged to that. He had assaulted his girlfriend or his wife. He had done things which rendered what he had done, because he was here illegally, because he did not seek due process, because he did not do that. That is a question, and it has very little to do with the Constitution, and it has a lot to do with if a person who comes here without following the process, would they be entitled to the same process that they did not follow? And that I do not know the answer.
It seems to be answered, though, in the Constitution. Anyone on American soil is afforded due process. That's part of it. But, okay, let's go to tariffs now. Because
maybe.
Okay, you think maybe. On tariffs, you have candidly said that you would not have gone the direction that the president has when it comes to tariffs. After acknowledging last week that his trade war is going to raise prices on some goods, he used children's dolls as an example. He then defended that position again in this new interview. Let me play this.
I'm just saying they don't need to have $30. They can have 3. They don't need to have 250 pencils. They can have 5.
The president telling your constituents how many pencils they can have or how many dolls they can have. I mean, the Republican Party has traditionally long been the party of get the government out of my life, not telling me how many pencils I can buy my kid. Are you comfortable with that kind of message coming from the president to your constituents?
Well, the message that I have and do hold on to is that I felt like that China was the effort, not the other countries that were involved, not Mexico, not Canada. that we have a problem with China. China, as we all know, has taken advantage of the importation where something under $800 a package of total cost is not looked at. And we receive millions of those packages. And because of that exclusion, it is seen as a gateway for bringing fentanyl in this country. On the other side, the intellectual property issue, it is very apparent that major businesses and those who develop intellectual property understand that there are goods and services, as for instance a DeWitt saw that would go for $400 here, goes for, if it's imported in the country, $40. That's a theft of intellectual property. It's a theft of the work that went into that saw, and they simply took the saw, redid it, used state money to influence its outcome, and then undercut the American market. That is the problem that we have with China. I do not share that view that the other countries are a problem. I think I indicated that. I had a problem in particular because of Texas and Mexico and Texas and Canada with a strong relationship. And so those were my evaluations. I still stand on the side. The president rightfully has gone at China because they steal intellectual property, undercut our prices, and send things back into the country redone. And I am very proud of the president doing that. And I think that the marketplace is responding accordingly now. And I saw where we added, as the world did, we added 177,000 private sector jobs with people who now believe that they can move forward selling their products with their own intellectual property and rule of law.
Let's see if those trade deals are announced to alleviate some of what you've been discussing, your issues that you've had with some of the trade positions that he's taken. Congressman, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Yes,
Sarah?
ma'am.